Imagine sitting in a room full of women who have known your future mother-in-law longer than they have known your name. Imagine 42 people watching you open a gift bag. Imagine pulling out the tissue paper, one item at a time, while the entire room waits. And then imagine reading a handwritten note, in perfect cursive, that says, "You'll need these more than a ring." Before I tell you what happened next, take 1 second to subscribe to this channel, because this story is about what happens when a woman who has spent 36 years controlling every room she walks into, finally meets the one person she cannot control. This is not a story about a wedding. This is a story about erasure. About a woman who spent 14 months trying to unmake another woman, piece by piece, flower by flower, guest by guest. And about the moment it all unraveled, in front of every person she had ever tried to impress. My name is Morgan. I am 31 years old. I am a nurse practitioner in a small town in North Carolina. And this is the story of how a white gift bag with gold tissue paper ended 36 years of one woman's reign. If you have ever sat at a family table and swallowed what you really wanted to say, stay for this one. Let me take you back to the beginning. Not the bridal shower. Not the wedding. The beginning. Brevard, North Carolina. Population 12,000 on a good day. I grew up in a house where the word struggle was never spoken out loud, because speaking it out loud would have made it real. My mother was a dental assistant at the only clinic in town that accepted Medicaid patients. She wore scrubs every day of my childhood. She smelled like antiseptic and determination. She was the strongest woman I have ever known, and for a long time, she was the only person I trusted completely. My father left on a Tuesday morning when I was 9 years old. He said he would be back by dinner. He packed one duffel bag. He was not back by dinner. He was not back by the end of the week. He was not back at all. My mother did not explain it. She did not cry in front of me. She picked up extra shifts. She kept the lights on. She packed my lunch every morning and asked about my day every evening, as if nothing had been torn out of the center of our lives. But I felt it. That absence. That specific weight of a space where someone used to be. And I learned 2 things from watching my mother navigate that silence. Nobody is coming to save you. And you can cry after the work is done. I started working at 18. Night shifts at a gas station on Asheville Highway. 11 at night to 7 in the morning. 4 nights a week. While I took community college classes during the day, I studied pharmacology between customers buying cigarettes and scratch-off tickets at 3 in the morning. My first savings account had $412 in it. I remember that number exactly, because I had never seen that much money, with my name attached to it. Nursing school took 4 years. I graduated near the top of my class. Not because I was the smartest person in the room, but because I could not afford to fail. Failure was a luxury I had not budgeted for. By 28, I was a nurse practitioner at a family health clinic in Hendersonville, 30 minutes from where I grew up. I saw 30 patients a day. Ear infections, diabetes management, blood pressure checks. The kind of work nobody films documentaries about, but everybody needs when 3 in the morning becomes a medical emergency. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment on Church Street. Small kitchen. 1 window that caught the morning light. Every dish in that cabinet, every towel in that bathroom, every piece of furniture in that living room, was bought with money I had earned. I did not have much, but everything I had was mine. What I had not yet learned was what happens when someone looks at the life you have built with your own hands and decides it is not enough. Daniel Whitfield walked into my clinic on a Thursday afternoon with a 2-inch gash on his left palm. He had been repairing a fence on his family's property outside Hendersonville. A wire had snapped. The wound was clean but deep. He needed a tetanus shot and 4 stitches. I cleaned the wound. I prepared the sutures. And while I worked, he asked me about my day. Not politely, genuinely. Most patients want to talk about themselves. Daniel asked what time my shift had started, whether I liked the work, whether I had eaten lunch. I had not eaten lunch. He came back the following week to have the stitches checked. The wound was healing perfectly. He asked me to coffee. Daniel was a corporate attorney based in Charlotte. He drove to Hendersonville every weekend to look after his family's property. He was 33 years old. Quiet in a way that felt chosen rather than forced. Patient in a way that reminded me of my own reflection. Our first date was at a coffee shop on Main Street called Blue Ridge Roasters. He ordered black coffee. I ordered the same. We talked for 3 hours. He never mentioned his family's name. Never mentioned the house on the hill. Never mentioned money. Not once. By the third date, I realized Daniel Whitfield was the first man who had ever asked about my work and actually listened to the answer. By the sixth date, I told him about my father leaving. He did not try to explain it. Did not try to fix it. Did not offer me a framework for processing childhood abandonment. He just said, "That must have been hard." And then he changed the subject. Because he understood that some things do not need to be solved. They just need to be acknowledged. I was falling for him. Quietly. Honestly. Completely. And I would have kept falling. If it had not been for one thing. Then I met his mother. The Whitfield house sat on a hill on the west side of Hendersonville. White columns. Circular driveway. The kind of home that makes you check your shoes at the door without being asked. Daniel brought me for Sunday dinner 3 months into our relationship. Vivian Whitfield met us at the door. She was 58 years old. Tailored cream blouse. Pearl earrings. A handshake that felt like a job interview. She looked at me the way you look at a stain on a white tablecloth. "So, you're a nurse," she said. She paused. "That's very selfless." The pause was the weapon. The word was the sheath. Within 20 minutes, she had mapped my entire background with the precision of a surgeon who had no intention of healing anything. My mother's profession. My father's departure. My apartment on Church Street. My 12-year-old Honda Civic with the dent in the passenger door. When I mentioned that my mother was a dental assistant, Vivian smiled. How nice. Gerald's mother was a surgeon. Gerald was Vivian's husband. 61 years old. Commercial real estate developer. He sat at the head of the table scrolling through his phone and said almost nothing. Vivian had arranged the seating. I was at the far end of the table, 3 chairs away from Daniel, with Patricia, Daniel's older sister, positioned between us like a velvet rope. Dinner was filet mignon, asparagus, and a silence so thick you could have spread it on bread. When Daniel and I left, he apologized in the driveway. "She's like that with everyone at first," he said. "She's your mother," I said. "I can handle it." I meant it. I had handled worse than a woman with pearl earrings and an agenda. What I had not yet understood was that Vivian Whitfield did not have opinions. She had campaigns. Patricia showed up at my apartment 2 weeks later. Unannounced. "Just stopping by," she said, already scanning the living room like a home inspector with something to prove. She took photographs. For the family group chat, she explained, holding her phone at angles specifically designed to capture the water stain on the ceiling and the IKEA bookshelf I had assembled myself the previous autumn. The text started the following Thursday. 7 in the morning. Daniel prefers his shirts folded, not hung. Noon. He doesn't like garlic, just so you know. 9 at night. Mom thinks you should consider highlights. She has a wonderful stylist. Every message ended with a smiley face. As if a smiley face could disguise a command. I showed Daniel. He sighed. "That's just Trish. She means well." Then Gerald called Daniel that same weekend. I could hear his voice through the phone. Not loud. Just steady. The voice of a man who had learned that steadiness was more effective than volume. "Your mother just wants to be included. Is that so much to ask?" That was when I began to see the architecture clearly. Vivian controlled. Patricia enforced. Gerald funded. And Daniel. Daniel was the product they were all trying to protect. On her way out of my apartment that afternoon, Patricia paused at the door. "You know, Vivian's last favorite for Daniel was a pediatrician from Asheville. Didn't work out. But she was lovely." She said lovely the way Vivian had said selfless. Like a compliment with a knife hidden inside. Daniel proposed 11 months after our first cup of black coffee at Blue Ridge Roasters. Same table. Same quiet corner. Same man who always asked how my day was going before he talked about his own. He did not get down on one knee. He slid a ring across the table like he was passing a note in class. A simple diamond solitaire. Thin gold band. Clean and honest and nothing like what the Whitfield family would have chosen. I loved it. I said yes before he finished asking the question. We called our families that night. My mother cried for 6 full minutes. Happy tears. The kind she had been saving for a long time. Vivian's response was silence. Then, shouldn't we discuss this as a family first? Daniel said, we just did, Mom. Morgan said yes. That weekend, Vivian hosted what she called an engagement celebration at the Henderson County Country Club. She booked the private dining room, ordered champagne, invited 35 of her closest friends. She did not invite my mother. When I asked about it, Vivian tilted her head with practiced sympathy. Oh, I assumed she might be uncomfortable in this setting. My mother had spent 30 years making frightened patients comfortable in a dental chair. She would have been fine in any room in any zip code. But I let it go. I should not have let it go. At the party, Vivian introduced me to each of her friends using the same formula. This is Daniel's, fiancé now, I suppose. Every introduction sounded like a reluctant admission. Patricia posted a photo of my ring in the family group chat. The caption read, "Sweet. Very dainty." I knew what dainty meant in Whitfield vocabulary. It meant small. It meant insufficient. It meant not quite right. Daniel squeezed my hand under the table and whispered that the ring was perfect. I squeezed back. The ring was not the problem. Wedding planning started the following week. Daniel and I wanted something intimate and honest. An outdoor ceremony at Wildberry Creek Vineyard, 4 to 5 minutes from Hendersonville. 80 guests. Farm-to-table dinner. Wildflower arrangements, cornflowers and black-eyed Susans, the kind that grew along the roadsides in Brevard where I had grown up. Within 7 days, Vivian had called the venue. Not to ask. To add. 40 additional guests. All hers. Country club members. Church committee chairs. People I had never met and would likely never speak to at my own wedding. She called the caterer and changed the menu. Farm to table was too casual. She ordered plated filet mignon with bone sauce. She replaced the wildflowers with white roses and eucalyptus. She did all of this without telling us. I found out when the venue manager emailed me a revised invoice. $14,000 more than our original agreement. I called Daniel. Your mother added 40 people and changed the entire menu. He was quiet for a long time. Let me talk to her. He talked to her. She cried. She said she was only trying to help. She said planning Daniel's wedding was a dream she had carried since the day he was born. She said I was being rigid. Daniel came back to me. I think she'll back off now. She did not back off. The next morning, I checked the venue's online portal. 3 more names had been added overnight. Gerald's email address had been granted access to the account. Access I had never approved. That was the first moment I understood what was actually happening. Vivian was not helping plan a wedding. She was replacing one. Replacing the wildflowers with her roses. Replacing the 80 people who loved us with 120 people who loved her reputation. And if I did not stop it, she would eventually replace the bride, too. I changed every password that afternoon. Removed Gerald's access. Called the venue manager personally and told her that no changes were to be made without my direct voice confirmation. Vivian found out within 48 hours. She did not call me. She called Daniel. I understand, she said. Her voice as smooth as church organ music on a Sunday morning. It's your day. I'll step back. She did not step back. The next Saturday was my dress fitting. I had chosen a small bridal shop in Asheville run by a woman named Helen who had been fitting brides for 30 years. The dress I selected was a simple A-line silhouette. Clean lines. No beading. No cathedral train. It cost $800 and when I put it on, I felt like myself. I was standing in front of the mirror when Patricia walked in. Oh, I was just in the area, she said. She was not just in the area. Asheville is 4 to 5 minutes from Hendersonville and the shop was on a side street with no foot traffic. She had a folder. Inside the folder were printed photographs of 5 gowns Vivian had selected. Ball gowns with cathedral trains. Price tags ranging from $8,000 to $12,000. Mom thought you might want to see some options, Patricia said, spreading the photographs across the counter like a hand of cards. Helen looked at me. I looked at the photographs. Then I looked at Patricia. I already chose my dress. But thank you. Patricia gathered the printouts slowly. She'll be disappointed. I bought the A-line gown that afternoon. $800. My money. My dress. My choice. 6 months later, I wore it to my wedding. And it was the most beautiful thing I had ever put on. Not because of how it looked in photographs, but because nobody else had chosen it for me. But the dress confrontation was just a skirmish. Vivian's real campaign was already running. I just had not yet seen the scale of it. 3 months before the wedding, small things started going wrong. The florist called on a Monday morning to confirm the change to all-white arrangements. I had not requested any change. Mrs. Whitfield called last Thursday, the florist said. She said she was coordinating on behalf of the couple. I called the photographer next. Rebecca had received an email requesting a new ceremony timeline. The ceremony had been moved from 4 in the afternoon to 2. I called the caterer. They asked if they should proceed with Mrs. Whitfield's menu revisions. The farm-to-table dinner I had spent weeks planning had been replaced with a 3-course plated dinner. Lobster bisque, filet mignon, and a 5-tiered fondant cake I had never agreed to. I made 4 more calls that afternoon. The DJ had received a new playlist. Every song Daniel and I had chosen together had been removed and replaced with what Vivian described as classics. The baker had been told to change the cake flavor from carrot to vanilla buttercream because carrot cake was not, in Vivian's words, elegant enough. The rental company had been asked to swap our wooden farm tables for round banquet tables draped in white linen. And every single call carried the same explanation. Mrs. Whitfield called. She said she was coordinating on behalf of the couple. I had locked the venue accounts. But I had not locked the vendor relationships. Vivian had not needed the venue password. She had gone around it entirely, calling each vendor directly using a voice so smooth and so authoritative that not one of them had thought to verify her authority. I traced the calls. Every single one had come from the same number. Not Vivian's personal cell. Gerald's office line at Whitfield Properties. She had used his business phone so the calls would appear official. A real estate company number. Professional. Authoritative. Calculated. She had not made a single mistake. This was not impulsiveness. This was architecture. Daniel confronted his father that Sunday. He told me every word afterward. Gerald was sitting in the leather chair in his home office, hands folded, looking like a man who had been expecting this conversation and had already decided how it would end. "Your mother means well," Gerald said. "She's just excited about the wedding, Daniel." "Dad, she changed our florist, our caterer, our photographer's timeline, our cake, our music, our tables. Is any of that really worth a fight?" Daniel stared at his father. "She erased every single choice Morgan and I made together." Gerald looked at his desk. "Weddings are stressful. Everyone gets emotional." That night, Daniel sat on the edge of my couch with his head in his hands. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'll fix this." I looked at this man I loved. This patient, decent, quietly exhausted man who had spent 33 years trying to hold peace with a woman who used peace as a weapon. "You've said that 4 times now, Daniel." He looked up. His eyes were tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "I know." At midnight, Gerald sent Daniel a text. "Don't upset your mother over flowers, son. Pick your battles." Daniel showed me the message. I read it twice. Then I turned off the lamp. "She is not going to stop," I said. "You know that, right?" He did not answer. But he did not disagree. 6 weeks before the wedding, Vivian changed her strategy. She stopped calling vendors. She started calling my guests. My college roommate Tara called me on a Wednesday afternoon, her voice careful and confused. "Hey, I got a weird call from someone named Vivian. She said the wedding was postponed and that I'd receive a new date when things were sorted out." Something cold moved through me. The wedding is not postponed. Tara went quiet. Morgan, who is this woman? I called Lisa, my colleague at the clinic. Same story. Vivian had called her the day before. She told Lisa that the venue had changed. The wedding was being moved to a smaller location. It was going to be an intimate family ceremony now. I spent that entire evening on the phone. 8 of my 12 invited guests had received calls from Vivian. 8. Each one had been told a slightly different version of the same lie. Postponed. Relocated. Downsized. All designed to remove my people from my wedding. Every single one of Vivian's 40 guests had received nothing. Not one call. Not one false rumor. Her church friends were still on the list. Her country club members were still on the list. Only mine were being quietly erased. I reconfirmed with each person as calmly as I could manage. 6 said they would still come. 2 had already made other plans. Tara had booked a work trip. My nursing school friend Deanne had committed to her niece's birthday party. Gone. My mother-in-law was erasing me from my own wedding. Not dramatically. Not with confrontation. Guest by guest. Call by call. Like removing stitches from a wound she wanted to keep open. I stood in my kitchen that night with my phone on the counter and thought about walking away. For about 6 seconds. Then I thought about the $800 dress hanging in my closet. My dress. My choice. And I decided that Vivian Whitfield would not get to unmake what I had made. Daniel drove to the Whitfield house the next morning without calling ahead. First time he had ever done that. He told me every word when he returned. He walked in without knocking. Vivian was in the kitchen arranging hydrangeas. Mom, you called Morgan's guests and told them the wedding was cancelled. Vivian set down the flowers. She blinked twice. And then, the tears came. Not slow. Not building. Instant. Complete. Mascara preserving in a way that suggested this particular cry had been rehearsed so many times it now activated on command. I have given everything for this family, she said, her voice cracking at precisely the right frequency. I organized your father's birthday. I chaired the fundraiser that paid for the church roof. I have given 36 years to this family. And now you are telling me I cannot even help with my own son's wedding. Patricia materialized from the hallway. Already there. Already positioned. As if she had been waiting in the wings for her cue. Danny. Mom just wants to feel included. Morgan is being very. She searched for the word. Rigid. Daniel sat in that living room for 40 minutes while his mother performed grief and his sister built the case that I was the architect of the family's suffering. When he finally left and called me from the driveway, his voice was flat and hollow. Maybe we should let her have a few things. I was quiet for a long moment. I looked at the wedding timeline taped to my wall. The original one. The one Daniel and I had made together at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and 2 cups of coffee, planning the day we actually wanted. Daniel, I said. She didn't ask to have a few things. She took them. There was a Sunday dinner that month that I have never forgotten. Filet mignon. Asparagus. Gerald on his phone. Patricia reporting on her children's school achievements. Vivian presiding over the table the way she presided over everything, with the quiet authority of someone who has never once doubted her right to the center of every room. I excused myself during dinner to find the restroom. On my way back through the hallway, I stopped. There was a framed photograph I had walked past a dozen times and never truly looked at. Vivian. Young. Maybe 22. Standing at what could only be her own wedding reception. The edge of a white tablecloth. Champagne glasses. A spray of flowers behind her. She was smiling. But it was the smile of someone trying very hard to look like they belonged somewhere. And behind her, an older woman. Gerald's mother. Grandma Rose. Turned completely away. Talking to someone else. Her back to Vivian. At Vivian's own wedding. Gerald appeared beside me. He was heading to his office. His permanent escape route from any emotional weather that gathered inside the house. He stopped. Looked at the photograph. Mom, he said, meaning Rose. She never thought Vivian was good enough. Said she wasn't the right fit for the Whitfield name. Took Vivian about 15 years to stop trying to win her over. I looked at the girl in that photograph. I recognized her. Not her face. Her posture. Shoulders slightly drawn in. Chin slightly raised. Trying to occupy space while feeling in every bone that she had no right to it. I had stood exactly like that at Vivian's dinner table 3 months ago. Vivian became Rose. The girl who was never accepted grew into the woman who refuses to accept anyone. A cycle so old the frame around it had yellowed at the edges. I felt something for that girl in the photograph. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But recognition. And then I walked back to the dinner table. Because knowing why someone causes pain does not make the pain optional. And 36 years was enough time to have chosen differently. For weeks before the wedding, a Tuesday, I was charting patient notes at the clinic when my phone buzzed. An email from Rebecca, our photographer. Subject line, timeline update, Whitfield Meadows wedding. She had accidentally forwarded an entire email chain to me. 4 to 7 emails. 4 months of correspondence. I read every single one during my lunch break, sitting in my car in the clinic parking lot with the engine off and my hands completely still. Vivian to the florist, please disregard the wildflower order. White roses and eucalyptus only going forward. Vivian to the caterer, the farm-to-table concept won't work for this event. Please see the revised menu I've attached. Vivian to the DJ, I've attached a new playlist. The previous selections were too youthful for the occasion. Vivian to the venue manager, we'll need to adjust the seating chart. I've attached the updated guest list. Please note the additions highlighted in yellow. 23 guests I had never approved. The ceremony timeline had been moved twice without my knowledge. The cake flavor had been changed. The napkin color had been changed. The rehearsal dinner location had been changed. And at the bottom of every single email, CC, Gerald Whitfield. He was not silent. He was coordinating. But the email that stopped me completely was from 3 weeks earlier. Vivian to the caterer, please remove the vegetarian options from the menu. They won't be needed. My mother is vegetarian. Vivian had known that since the first Sunday dinner. She had asked about it directly across the table with a warm smile and perfect manners. And she had used the information. She had removed my mother's meal from the menu. Not by accident. By design. I sat in that parking lot for 20 minutes. Then I went back inside and finished my shift. Because the work does not stop because your hands are shaking. That evening I did not call Daniel. I went home, opened my laptop, and went through every single one of those 4 to 7 emails. I created a folder. I screenshot every message. I cross-referenced every vendor change against the original agreements Daniel and I had signed together. Original plan on the left. Vivian's version on the right. 14 pages. I color-coded it. Green for what we had decided together. Red for what Vivian had changed behind our backs. There was a great deal of red. Then I picked up the phone and called every vendor personally. I gave each of them a new verification password. I told each of them that any future request without that password was to be rejected. I locked every back door Vivian had walked through. The last call was to Rebecca, who had accidentally forwarded the chain. I'm so sorry, Rebecca said. I thought you knew about all of it. I do now, I said. Mrs. Whitfield is very thorough, Rebecca said quietly. Yes, I said. She is. I saved the folder to my desktop. I labeled it with the date and one word. Evidence. Then I closed the laptop and made myself dinner. I ate slowly. I washed the dishes. I swept the kitchen floor. And I thought. The folder sat untouched for 3 days. Not because I was hesitating. Because I was choosing the right moment. Vivian had spent 4 months building a shadow wedding behind my back. A parallel ceremony, fully staffed, that looked like my wedding from the outside and had nothing of me inside it. Daniel needed to see this. Not hear a summary from me. Not receive my interpretation. He needed to see the actual emails. The actual changes. The CC from his father on every single message. The line about removing the vegetarian options. The scale of it laid out plainly before him. 3 days later, a Friday evening, Daniel came to my apartment still wearing his work suit. I had made coffee. I set his cup on the table next to my open laptop. I need you to read something. He sat down. I opened the folder. I did not narrate. I did not explain. I did not editorialize. I let him read. He read for 20 minutes without speaking a single word. His coffee went cold. I watched his face move through confusion, then recognition, then something I had never seen on Daniel Whitfield's face before. Cold. Quiet. Absolute fury. He reached the email about the vegetarian options. His jaw tightened slowly, like a door being bolted. He closed the laptop. His eyes were red. Not from crying. From something past crying. She removed your mother's meal. Yes. She knew. She asked her at dinner. Yes. He was silent for a long time. The apartment was so still I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. What do you want me to do? He asked. I looked at this man. This patient, decent, genuinely good man who had spent his entire adult life trying to maintain peace with a woman who used his love for her as leverage. I don't want you to do anything yet, I said. I want you to know what's real. And then I want you to decide what kind of family you want to be. Daniel stayed that night. He did not call his mother. He did not call his father. He sat on my couch and read those 47 emails 2 more times. And I could see something shifting behind his eyes. The last load-bearing wall of she means well cracking under the weight of 47 documented, time-stamped, coordinated lies. 2 weeks before the wedding, Vivian called Daniel. I'm hosting Morgan's bridal shower at the Laurel Room, she said. I've already booked the space, sent the invitations, and arranged everything. It's my gift to her. The Laurel Room was a restored barn on the outskirts of Hendersonville. Exposed beams. Edison bulb string lights strung between the rafters. Farm tables. It was beautiful. It was Vivian's territory. She had hosted 3 committee events there. She knew every corner of that room. The guest list was 42 women. 38 of them were Vivian's people. Country club wives. Church committee members. Women who had attended Vivian's fundraisers and sat in Vivian's pews and laughed at Vivian's dinner table for decades. 4 of them were mine. My best friend Jenna. My mother. My co-worker Lisa. And Tara, who had managed to rearrange her schedule to be there. Daniel told me over the phone. My first instinct was to decline. Then I stopped. I thought about the folder. 47 emails. 14 pages of read. 4 months of calculated, coordinated erasure. And I thought about who Vivian Whitfield fundamentally was. A woman who needed an audience. A woman who needed control. A woman who needed every room arranged in her image and every person in it performing the role she had written for them. A woman who could not help herself. If I declined, she would tell everyone I was ungrateful. She would become the wounded, generous mother-in-law. I would become the difficult, ungrateful bride. But if I said yes, she would have a stage. And people who need a stage eventually show the audience exactly who they are. Tell her yes, I said. Daniel paused. Are you sure? Let her host it. Let her plan every detail. Let her fill that room with her people. He was quiet for a moment. You think she's going to do something? I looked at the folder on my desktop. 14 pages of read. I think your mother cannot resist an audience. And I think 42 witnesses is more than enough. 3 days before the shower, I printed the folder. All 14 pages. Every email. Every vendor comparison. The line about removing the vegetarian options. The CC to Gerald on every single message. I put everything in a manila envelope and set it on my kitchen table. Daniel came over after work that evening. I slid the envelope across the table. The same way he had once slid a ring across a coffee shop table. Your mother is going to do something at this shower. I don't know exactly what. But she will. When she does, you'll have a choice. He looked at the envelope. What's in it? Everything you need to see. Not my summary. Not my interpretation. The actual emails. Every change. All of it. He opened it. Spread the pages across the table. He had already read the digital versions. But printed. Laid out side by side. Original versus Vivian's version. Green and red. It looked like what it was. A blueprint for erasing a person. He read every page again. Then he looked at me. What do you want me to do? I want you to be nearby on Saturday. Not inside. The shower is not your space. But close. And if Jenna texts you, come. He nodded slowly. The coffee shop across the street. 5 minutes away. And if she doesn't do anything? Then we have a pleasant shower and I say thank you and we move on. He folded the pages back into the envelope. He held it against his chest for a moment, like a man holding something he had been avoiding for a very long time. I'll be at the coffee shop by 10:30. He did not sleep that night. Neither did I. But it was not anxiety keeping us awake. It was clarity. Saturday, 11 in the morning. I wore a blue sundress. Nothing that tried too hard. Nothing designed to impress. Jenna picked me up. She was my maid of honor and the best friend I had ever had. She knew about the emails. She knew about the folder. She had Daniel's number saved at the top of her favorites. You okay? She asked as we pulled into the gravel parking lot of the Laurel Room. I'm ready, I said. And I was. I walked through the door and stopped 2 steps inside. Photographs. Everywhere. On every table. Strung across the exposed beams on twine with tiny clothespins. Framed on the gift table. Arranged in clusters along the barn walls. Every single photograph was of Daniel. Daniel at 5 years old learning to ride a bicycle. Daniel at 12 in a Little League uniform. Daniel at prom. Daniel at his law school graduation. Gerald shaking Daniel's hand. Vivian pinning a boutonniere on Daniel before some formal event. Photo after photo after photo. Not one image of me. Not one photograph of the two of us together. The color scheme was champagne and sage. Vivian's colors. Not the navy and wildflower palette Daniel and I had chosen together. The banner above the gift table read, Our Daniel's next chapter. Not congratulations, Morgan. Not Morgan and Daniel. Our Daniel's. Like the wedding was something happening to him. And I was simply the circumstance surrounding it. My mother was already seated near the back of the room. She had arrived early. She looked uncomfortable in the specific way that a person looks uncomfortable when someone has deliberately made sure they feel that way. Vivian met me at the entrance. Cream blazer. Pearls. A smile calibrated for maximum warmth and minimum sincerity. Don't you look nice, she said. The pause before nice landed precisely where she intended it to. Behind her, Patricia was positioning a camera on a tripod, pointed directly at the chair where gifts would be opened. The red recording light already blinking. The games began. Vivian as master of ceremonies. Lavender index card she had written herself. Microphone in hand. The game. How well do you know the groom? 10 questions. Daniel's favorite childhood food. His first pet's name. The street he grew up on. His kindergarten teacher. Every question required knowledge that only someone who had known Daniel since birth would have. Every question was designed so that I would fail. I got 3 out of 10. Vivian announced my score to the room. Don't worry, dear. You'll learn. Her friends echoed it warmly around the room. Oh, you'll learn. Give it a few years. The laughter was warm on the surface. Cold underneath. Like bathwater that no one had thought to heat. Jenna squeezed my hand under the table. My mother adjusted her napkin. Jaw tight, eyes on the floor. She had raised me alone. Worked double shifts for 20 years. Driven 4 hours round trip every week for 2 years just to visit me in college. She said nothing. She knew, as I knew, that this was not a fight you won by arguing. This was a fight you won by waiting. Gift opening came next. My 4 guests went first. A handmade recipe box from my mother, family recipes written in her own handwriting on individual cards. A hand-knitted scarf from Jenna in the exact shade of blue I had chosen for the wedding. Small gifts. Real gifts. Gifts that knew who I was. Vivian watched each one with the polite attention of someone waiting for the appetizers to conclude so the real event could begin. Patricia adjusted the camera angle. Then Vivian stood up. I saved mine for last, she said. She smiled at the room the way a conductor smiles before the orchestra reaches the crescendo. She carried the gift bag to me herself. White bag. Gold tissue paper. Expensive looking. Tasteful. She held it out like an offering. I put a great deal of thought into this, she said. The room went quiet. Not silent. Attentive. The way an audience leans forward right before the punchline. I pulled back the tissue paper. First item. A gym membership card. 12 months prepaid at the Henderson County Country Club Fitness Center. Vivian's club. Where Vivian's friends worked out. Where Vivian would have been the one to watch me walk in. I set it on the table. Second item. A hardcover cookbook. Feeding Him Right. A modern guide to cooking for your man. The dust jacket showed a woman in a spotless kitchen wearing an apron and a string of pearls. Smiling at a casserole dish. I set it beside the membership card. Third item. A handwritten note. Cream cardstock. Perfect cursive. I read it once. Then I read it again. You'll need these more than a ring. A gym membership to change my body. A cookbook to correct my domestic skills. And a note informing me that the love of her son was not something I had earned. That I would need to be fundamentally different before I deserved it. One woman near the back of the room gasped. Then Patricia laughed. Sharp. Performative. The kind of laugh that is an instruction to the room. This is funny. Laugh. And they did. Vivian's friends joined in first. Then it rippled outward. 40 women laughing. Not all of them meaning it. But enough of them did. Enough of them looked at the gym membership and the cookbook and the note in perfect cursive and decided this was the kind of entertainment worth participating in. My mother looked at the floor. Jenna's hand was shaking under the table. I could feel her reaching for her phone. I put the gym membership back in the bag. I put the cookbook back in the bag. I folded the note carefully along its original creases and placed it back inside. I set the bag on the table in front of me. And then I looked at Vivian Whitfield. And I said nothing. Not one word. I sat there with my spine straight and my hands folded in my lap, and I looked directly at my future mother-in-law while the laughter moved around the room like smoke. I did not cry. I did not stand up. I did not make a joke about needing the gym membership. I did not perform gratitude. I simply sat still. And my stillness was louder than any response Vivian had prepared for. The laughter began to thin. Not because anyone felt guilty. Not yet. But because my silence was wrong. The script required me to blush or laugh along or excuse myself to cry in a bathroom. The script required me to give Vivian what she had always taken. My reaction. My humiliation. My performance. I did not perform. I sat still. And the room waited with me. Even though none of them knew what they were waiting for. Under the table, Jenna's phone screen lit up. She had already sent the text. Come now. The door of the Laurel Room was 5 minutes away from opening. The door opened. 42 women turned. Daniel stood in the entrance. Jeans. The blue button-down he had worn on our very first date at Blue Ridge Roasters. He was breathing like he had been running. The coffee shop was across the street, but he had not walked. His eyes found me first. I was sitting straight, dry-eyed. The gift bag on the table in front of me. He looked at me the way you look at someone you love when you understand, suddenly, completely, that you should have been there sooner. Then he walked to the table. He picked up the gym membership. Read the label. Set it down. He picked up the cookbook. Read the title. Turned it over. Set it down. He picked up the note. He read it. I watched his jaw set. A slow, quiet tightening. Like a door being bolted from the inside. He looked at his mother. Vivian's smile was still on her face. But it had frozen. The smile of a woman who had rehearsed every possible reaction from every possible person in every possible scenario, except this one. Daniel, sweetheart, she said, her voice dropping into the soft, tender register she used when she needed to regain control. We were just having fun. It was a joke. You know I love Morgan. Daniel held the note up so the entire front row of the room could read the perfect cursive. Who's laughing, Mom? Nobody was. The room was so silent I could hear the Edison bulb string lights buzzing above us. Patricia's camera was still running. Red light blinking. 42 women who had laughed 60 seconds ago were now staring at their plates, their water glasses, the exits. Vivian reached for Daniel's arm. He stepped back. Not dramatically. Just enough. The distance of a man drawing a line. I have something to say, he said. He turned toward the microphone stand still positioned at the front of the room from the shower games. Still plugged in. Still live. He picked it up. Daniel held that microphone the way he held his briefcase when he walked into a courtroom. Steady. Level. Professional. No tremor in his hand. He did not raise his voice. He spoke the way I speak when I deliver difficult news to a patient. Clear. Calm. Leaving no room for misunderstanding. I want every woman in this room to hear what I'm about to say. He looked at Patricia. You can keep filming. He turned to face his mother. Mom, I have read every email you sent to our wedding vendors. The word every landed like a stone dropped into still water. Ripples moved through the room. Glances exchanged. Postures shifting. The sound of chairs adjusting. All 4 to 7 of them. Over 4 months. I know you changed the flowers Morgan chose. I know you changed the music we picked together. I know you changed the menu twice. I know you changed our cake from carrot to vanilla because carrot cake was not elegant enough for a Whitfield wedding. Vivian's hand moved to her pearls. Her mouth opened. No sound came. I know you called 8 of Morgan's guests and told them the wedding was postponed. I know you used Dad's office phone so every vendor would think the calls were official. And I know Dad helped you. His email is copied on every single message. He paused. I know you removed the vegetarian options from the menu. Another pause. Morgan's mother is vegetarian. You knew that. You asked her at dinner. In the back row, my mother pressed her hand over her mouth. And I know you spent 4 months building a version of our wedding that had nothing of Morgan in it. He held up the note. The cream cardstock. The perfect cursive. He read it aloud to the entire room. One more time. You'll need these more than a ring. He set the note down on the table, face up, legible to every woman still sitting near the front. And then he looked at his mother. The room held its breath. 42 women. A camera on a tripod. A gift bag with a gym membership and a cookbook and a note in perfect cursive. And my fiancé standing at a microphone he should never have needed to pick up. Daniel looked at Vivian. He said it once. Quiet. Final. The way a judge reads a verdict that cannot be appealed. You are not invited to our wedding. The sound Vivian made was not a word. It was something between a gasp and a wound. Patricia stepped forward. Danny. I'm not finished. Daniel turned to face the room. The committee chairs. The church board members. The country club wives. The women who had laughed. This, he said, holding up the note one final time, is what my mother thinks of the woman I love. A gym membership. A cookbook. And a handwritten note telling her she is not enough. He looked across the faces of every woman who had participated. You all laughed. Every one of you. Nobody moved. Mrs. Caldwell, the church choir director, looked at her hands. Her face was exactly the color of the cream cardstock. Then Vivian found her voice. It came out high and cracked and nothing like the measured, controlled tone she had used to run this county for 36 years. After everything I have done for you, she said, her voice breaking open. I raised you. I paid for your education. I built this family's name. And you are choosing her, a nurse from Brevard, over your own mother. She was screaming. The woman who had controlled rooms with a single carefully timed pause was standing in the center of the Laurel room, screaming at her own son, while a camera she had set up herself recorded every word. She's turned you against me. She doesn't even. Her father left, Daniel. Her father left. And you think she knows how to be a wife? My mother stood up in the back row. Jenna put a hand on her arm. My mother sat back down. She did not need to speak. Every woman in that room had heard what had just been said. Patricia tried one more time. Danny, Mom was only joking. Can we please handle this privately? She didn't humiliate Morgan privately. She did it in front of 42 people. So no. Patricia's eyes moved to the camera. Still recording. Red light blinking. She reached for the tripod. Daniel's voice, steady and quiet. Leave it on. Patricia's hand stopped in mid-air. She looked at Vivian, sobbing now in a chair, mascara tracking dark lines down both cheeks. She looked at Daniel. She looked at the camera. She lowered her hand. For the first time in her life, Patricia Whitfield Greer did not do what Vivian would have wanted. The room began to empty. Mrs. Caldwell stood up, gathered her purse, and walked out without a word. Then Mrs. Patton. Then 3 women from the garden committee. They left the way people leave a building when they first smell smoke. Quickly, quietly, without looking back. Nobody said goodbye to Vivian. Nobody hugged her. Nobody told her it would all be fine. They simply left. And the audience that Vivian Whitfield had spent 36 years performing for walked out of the Laurel Room and did not come back. The room was half empty. Vivian was in a chair, crying into her hands. Patricia stood beside her, frozen. Not comforting. Not leaving. Just standing like a woman who had misplaced her instructions. Daniel had lowered the microphone. His hand was steady. His eyes were tired. I stood up. For the first time since the gift bag had been placed in my lap, I moved. I walked to Vivian. My heels clicked on the barn floor. 3 steps. 4. 5. I picked up the white bag from the table. I crossed to where Vivian sat today. I set the bag gently in her lap. She looked up at me. Mascara streaked. Lipstick bitten. Eyes swollen. She did not look like the woman who had controlled Henderson County for 36 years. She looked like the girl in the wedding photograph. 22 years old. Standing alone at her own reception while Rose turned her back. I said one sentence. Low enough that only the women still remaining in the room could hear it. Firm enough that none of them would ever forget it. I think you'll need these more than I will. Vivian stared at me. I did not raise my voice. The gym membership might help with the stress. The cookbook, well, Gerald is going to need dinner when he gets home tonight and has to explain those 47 emails. I raised my left hand. The simple solitaire on the thin gold band. The ring Daniel had slid across a coffee shop table when he thought no one was watching. And the ring? I earned this. And I earned the man who gave it to me. I turned to Jenna. I think the shower is over. Jenna stood. My mother stood. Daniel set the microphone back on its stand. And we walked out of the Laurel Room together. The nurse practitioner from Brevid. The maid of honor who had been ready. The dental assistant who had worked double shifts. And the corporate attorney who had chosen love over legacy. The parking lot was gravel and late morning sun. Jenna walked to her car to give us a moment. My mother stood by the passenger door. Hands folded. Eyes bright but dry. She had kept it together through the shower games, the laughter, the gift bag, Vivian screaming across a barn. She had kept it together the way she had always kept it together, by deciding to. But now her chin trembled. Just once. And she pulled me into a hug that lasted longer than any hug she had given me since I was 9 years old and my father's side of the closet was empty. Your father would have been proud of you, she whispered. Not to make me cry. Because it was true. And because some truths need to be spoken out loud before the moment passes and takes them with it. Daniel stood by his car with the manila envelope tucked under his arm. He had brought it. He had not needed it. The emails were memoized by now. But he had carried it anyway, the way a good attorney brings evidence to court even when the verdict is already written. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry it took 47 emails and a gym membership for me to get here. I took his hand. You got here, I said. That's what matters. The following week moved faster than I expected. I did not post anything online. I did not tell anyone what had happened. I did not need to. Hendersonville is a small city. 42 women is not a small number. By Monday, Vivian's co-chair on the church fundraiser committee called to say she would be handling things independently this year. No explanation offered. None needed. 3 women from the fundraiser board had been at the shower. By Wednesday, 3 families quietly withdrew their children from the country club program Patricia coordinated. No formal complaints. No paper trail. Just the kind of silence that delivers a message without requiring a word. By Friday, Gerald called Daniel. Not to apologize. Gerald Whitfield had not apologized for anything in 61 years and was not beginning now. He called to ask a question. The first honest question, Daniel told me, he had ever heard his father ask. What do I do now? Daniel was quiet for a moment. That's between you and Mom, Dad. But you could start by being honest with her. About the emails. About why you helped. About why you never once said no to anything she asked, even when you knew it was wrong. Gerald was silent for so long that Daniel checked to see if the call had dropped. Then Gerald said, I don't know how. That's not my problem to solve anymore, Dad. Daniel hung up. He set his phone on the table and looked at me. Are you okay? I asked. I'm not okay, he said. But I'm honest. And that's better. We got married 6 weeks later. Wildberry Creek Vineyard. 80 guests. The original 80. Not 120. Not Vivian's version. 4 in the afternoon, the way we had planned it on a yellow legal pad at my kitchen table. Wildflower arrangements on every table. Cornflowers and black-eyed susans and sprigs of lavender. The same flowers that grew along the roadsides in Brevard where I had grown up and learned that nobody was coming to save you. Farm-to-table dinner. Roasted chicken. Grilled vegetables. Local goat cheese. Vegetarian plates for my mother and 3 other guests. Carrot cake with cream cheese frosting. Because carrot cake had always been Daniel's actual favorite. And it always would be. Jenna stood beside me in a navy dress she had chosen herself. Daniel's best man was his college roommate Marcus, not his father. When the officiant asked who gives this woman, my mother stood up. Her voice was clear and steady, the way it had been for 30 years of nervous patience. Her mother does. And her father, who is watching. I married Daniel Whitfield on a Saturday afternoon in October in an $800 dress I had purchased with my own money, in front of people who loved us for exactly who we were. No member of the Whitfield family sat in the front rows. Patricia sent a card. No signature. No apology. A gift card to a department store. Gerald sent a check for $5,000 with a handwritten note. For your new start. I'm sorry I never said anything. I deposited the check. I did not write back. Vivian sent nothing. No card. No gift. No message. No word at all. I did not expect anything. And for the first time in 14 months, that silence did not feel like a wound. It felt like space. Space to breathe. Space to begin. 6 months after the wedding, Vivian resigned from the church fundraiser committee. She did not attend the country club Christmas gala. She stopped hosting her annual New Year's brunch, the event that had anchored Henderson County's social calendar for 15 consecutive years. The women who had laughed at the shower did not apologize. They simply stopped calling. Stopped including her in the lunch plans and committee emails and forwarded invitations. They erased her the way she had tried to erase me. Not with cruelty. With silence. Patricia's husband came home one evening and asked a question that Daniel told me changed their marriage permanently. Would your mother do that to our daughter-in-law someday? Patricia did not answer. She started therapy the following week. Gerald still lives in the white colonial on the hill. He eats dinner alone most evenings. Vivian is still in the house. She has not left. But she is quieter now. The woman who once controlled every room she entered has stopped entering rooms. The silence between her and Daniel sits like the 47 emails. Documented. Undeniable. And too heavy.